Deepak, he mentioned about the vigilance angle. I will come later on. As my predecessor spoke about the role of public sector enterprises in a number of activities which they have taken from their inception. The one is the development of industrial base. As you all know that at the time of independence, there were hardly any PSUs. Only PSUs like Indian Ordnance Factory, Railway, all these things were available at that time. But once in the first 5-year plan, it was noticed that the target is not being achieved by the government. They decided to go for the industrial base, because India at that time needed a huge industrial base. And they set up industry like SAIL, BHEL, HL, etc. at that time. And the late 60s and early 70s, even they nationalized the coal blocks and banks also. Then after in 1780s, they again set up the huge industrial base by setting up the industry like ONGC, Indian Oil Corporation, NTPC, and a number of major PSUs. So now we have a huge industrial base in India which can be compared with the other countries of the world. The second role which PSU is playing in the employment generation. As you know, every PSU have a strength, which some of them they recruit directly, and some of them they take on deputation, and in some PSU they absorb the people also. Even sick units are also being taken over by just keeping the people not get unemployed. One estimate that 2/3 of total employment organization in the sector is in PSU. Balanced regional development is also one of the very key aspect of the setting of the PSU, because in earlier you are knowing that there are some states who are very developed like Gujarat, Maharashtra, etc. But there are states like Bihar, West Bengal, Odisha, they were not developed at that time. It was thought that these areas should be also developed. That is why the steel plants of Bhilai, Raurkela, Durgapur, fertilizer factory Sindri in Bihar, and other PSUs were installed, set up. Next is a contribution to public exchequer. As earlier predecessor also spoke about that. Exports earning, a number of items which were not being made in India were importing at that time. Now a number of things we made in India through the setup of PSU. That is how we export them and we earn the money also. We do the import substitution also, and all the PSUs pay the corporate taxes, excise and custom duty. Thus we contribute to the public exchequer. Development of ancillary industries. Ancillary industries development has been a government plan also in the government of India. Wherever there are major PSUs, a number of ancillary industries have been also developed to supply the parts which major PSUs are required. In that we have a number of ancillary units like around the Bokaro Industrial Complex, Heavy Engineering Complex, Ranchi, BHEL Complex at Bhopal, Haridwar and Hyderabad. Next is the contribution to increase agriculture production. We all know by developing high-yielding varieties of seeds, controlling crop diseases, innovative agriculture practices, we contributing in the increase of the agriculture production. A number of research laboratories are there in the field of agriculture which are making a huge contribution in high-yielding varieties of seeds. And the next, the most important thing is for the community development and social justice. Whenever there is a major PSU is set up, they develop their township, they develop schools, they develop hospitals, and thus, and not only that, they also develop they look after the labor welfare and their security also. They pay more, they look after them. And the second aspect is reducing concentration of power in private hands. You know, the number and the size, which the way and the strength, the way the PSOs are increasing, monopoly of the private hands are decreasing. Promoting public control of national economy. National economy, it should not be governed by the private people. Government should always have a total control on it. It is through the PSO that we are determining those approaches. Last is the creating socialistic pattern of society. If we adopt all these methods which I have mentioned, we are going to create a socialistic pattern of society where more or less to keep everybody happy. Now I switch over to my organization, DFCL. I think many of you may not be knowing much about the DFCL because at present we are constructing only 2 corridors. It's a totally dedicated freight corridor. It's only for the goods train. It has nothing to do with the passenger trains. So now I switch over to that, my presentation. Dedicated freight corridor project and overview. Genesis of dedicated freight. Why it was thought that separate freight corridors should be opened. This slide shows that in around 50 years there was a traffic of 400 million tons, while in 10 years, 2001 to 2012, it increases to 502. Where there was in 50 years only 400 million ton, within 10 years there has been increase of 502 million ton. That was the basic need which attracted the mind of the Indian Railway to go for this project. 16% of railway route carries 52% of the passenger and 58% of freight, which connected with all 4 these major cities. Rest 84% is covered by the whole of India. So there is a huge congestion on this sector. So in order to decongest this sector, it was necessary that separate freight corridors should be opened. These were the concerns for the railway. Falling market share, the share market for the traffic which was much more in earlier, it went down to 36%. Capacity consent I show in the next last slide. Differential speeds of train. As you know, the goods train are generally run on a very low speed in comparison of high speed train like Shatabdi, Rajdhani, etc. So they take a longer time. Inadequate ports and mines connectivity. Indian Railway is poorly connected with the ports and mines. Inability to carry longer, heavier tons. We, unlike Western countries, we have a very small wagon system which carries very less weight and it has less width also. Lower throughout, longer turnaround. Whenever the goods train reaches a destination, it takes a very long time to come back. So in order to remove these shortcomings, the dedicated freight corridors came into existence. Only following possibilities were there: upgrading the existing network, creation of a new passenger corridor, or creation of a new dedicated freight corridor. These are the 2 lines which are being seen by red mark. These are the 2 sanctioned corridors. One is from Ludhiana to Calcutta, which we call Eastern Corridor, and the other one is from Delhi to Mumbai, which we call Western Corridor. Other lines which you are seeing in the blue, they are under sanction. These are this slide shows which cities they are connecting. This whole project has been divided into a number of parts. That is why the phases APL1, APL2, APL3 has been written. APL1 has been already awarded of rupees 3,500 crore. It's a very huge project, and this whole dedicated project is of rupees 80,000 crore, which we will see later on the slide. These are the objectives through which we are going to achieve through this dedicated freight corridor. DFC to manage train operation. Operation of the train will be managed by the DFC. DFC to have own station and control center also. Like we have a railway stations, we will have a yard stations, separate yard station of DFCC. Other things will be looked after by the railway. This is the design feature of the wagon which we are going to procure. Existing, this is the Indian Railway which is using, it's a 4.265 meter height. We will be having the 7.1 meter in the western corridor and 5.1 in eastern corridor. Width, present width is 3,200 mm. We will have the 3,660 mm. Container will be in the western corridor, it will be double stack, and the eastern corridor it will be single. The length will be from 700 to 1500 meter, which now we have only 700 meter. Train load will be 4,000 ton at present, which will be increased up to the 15,000 ton in our system. Axle load, at present there is a 22.9 up to 25 ton. It will increase up to 32.5 ton. Load simultaneously, the load density will increase. Speed will go up to the 100 kilometer from 75 kilometer. These are the impacts which freight corridor comes in existence. We are going to achieve all these things. Transport capacity enhancement will be there. Faster movement will be there, which I have already shown in the last slides. Special services, automobiles, RO. Container from the ports can be directly loaded to the train, which was not being done earlier in goods train. Now it can be possible. Even if somebody doesn't want to go by road and he wants that his vehicle should go by train. Even the truck, which we see that on the road a number of truck is going, that truck can be loaded directly from the port and that can go up to the any destination. That facility is there, which in Western countries have. Simultaneously, decongestion of major highway will be there. Development of industrial corridor will be also there. Delhi, Mumbai industrial corridor will come into existence, and Amritsar, Kolkata industrial corridor will be also come into existence. Our railway will become greener also. So these are the facilities which we are going to advantage, which we are going to achieve if we have this total dedicated freight corridor. These are the things which we will be carrying from the other places, like in Eastern Corridor, we will have a coal, iron, steel, cement, food grain and RO traffic. Western Corridor will have a container, fertilizer, coal, petroleum products, automobile, cement and other things. How the projected traffic which has been given, it will increase. It will go in the Eastern Corridor up to 251 million ton, and the Western Corridor it will go up to the 224.3 million, which will increase the share of railway on the traffic. Funding arrangement, this project has been, Western Corridor is being funded by the Japanese government and the Eastern Corridor is being funded by the World Bank. This model has the PPP model also, right? From the Son Nagar to Dankuni, which comes to near to Calcutta, that is under the PPP model. Even private person can also come in this picture. This is the timelines which have been projected about the completion of project. There are some features which I would like to skip, not much to your concern. This already I have spoken earlier. These are the future corridors which are projected. East-West corridor, Kolkata, Mumbai. North-South corridor, Delhi, Chennai. East Coast corridor, Kharagpur, Vijayawada. Southern corridor, Chennai, Goa. The RITES are doing already survey of these corridors. Once we get the report, most likely to be submitted by December, then it appears that this project will also come in the picture. And the project which now it appears to be rupees 80,000 crore, may be possible that total may become a 5 lakhs crore project for whole India. These are the some things which, since my friend Deepak mentioned, despite huge potential for growth and development, Indian PSUs face several problems. You all know about this, like poor project planning, overcapitalization, excessive overheads, overstaffing, underutilization of staff, inefficient management. Last but not least, the corruption, which my friend Deepak was mentioning. Impact of corruption, you all know corruption is a serious economic issue, affects country economic development, promotes inefficiency in utilization of resources, compromise with quality, damage to environment, threat to national security also. These are the Transparency International indicators, which show that India ranked at 94 among the 177 countries. Even country which are seen very clean, we ranked to 36, Denmark number 1. A study shows that 50% of people in India had a first-hand experience of paying bribe, and estimated rupees 40,000 crores is lost due to delay in projects. It's a very important thing one should notice always. Delay in projection, delay in decision, it creates a huge loss to the PSUs. If corruption is eliminated, these are the findings. PSU would increase profit margin by about 20%, investment would increase by 12% annually, GDP would grow at an additional 1.5%. So being in a dedicated freight corridors, we are also giving direct employment to the people. We are making an industrial base for the country, and we are paying exchequer, corporate tax and other things. That is why the role of the DFCL is very important. And with this, I thank my chairman to allow me to speak for such a long time and the audience to listen me patiently. Thank you.